Okay, we are on day 3 of our characteristics of life notes. Really quickly, we'll go back through what we've already talked about. We first talked about what made something alive, and we watched a video to get us thinking. Then we said cell. That's the first characteristic of life that we're going to talk about. A cell is the basic unit of life, so if you have a cell, you are alive. We also mentioned the difference in living, non-living, dead. Living is when you have live cells. Non-living, you never had cells, and dead, your cells are dead. So is alive, never alive, was alive. It's a way to remember that. So on to day 3. The second characteristic of life we're going to talk about is growth. So whenever you write growth, be sure to put like a number 2 beside of it, so you know that is a characteristic of life. So growth, all it is an increase in the number of cells. For example, getting taller. So write that down. If you grow, it's exactly what you think about. It's just something getting larger, and the way that you get larger is you increase your number of cells. That is growth. And you can see the picture I put, it's so beautiful, of the little puppies and then their mama. So the puppies are smaller than their mama, but as they grow, their cells will increase and they will uh, increase in size, like their mom. So sweet. All right, next is development. So write this down. That's number 3. That is your third characteristic of life we will talk about. Development goes hand in hand with growth usually, but development is all of the changes that take place during an organism's lifetime. Like, for example, the way that we develop, we learn to roll over, we learn to crawl, then we learn to walk, then we learn to run. So that is your, like, sort of a chain of development in the typical human life. And I've put a picture of my baby. He does not look like that anymore. He has changed a lot, but at that time he could barely sit up by himself. We had his pictures taken, and we had to like prop him up against stuff because he'd sit up and then he'd fall over. Um, and now he's wild. He he can sit up, he can run, he can jump, he can do anything. So that is how babies develop, how we develop. Respond. This is the next characteristic of life. I think that's 4. So remember that 4 and write this down. If you respond, you interact with your surroundings. And I put a tree here. We've talked a lot, like pretty much everything that we've mentioned, like growth and development. Those have been animals, but trees, like plants, they're alive too, and they do interact with their surroundings. They respond. We'll talk about that more in the next video. Write these down too. When we talk about responding to your environment as a characteristic of life, we also want to look at these 2 little things here that are really important: a stimulus and a response. So a stimulus is something that causes change, and a response is the reaction. So some examples, real quick. You don't have to write this down. You're outside and it starts to rain. You move under the picnic shelter to keep dry. So the stimulus, what causes the change, is it starts to rain. The response, then, think about that. What would the response be in that scenario? It would be that you seek shelter. That's what that says. I'm covering it up, sorry. But you move under the picnic shelter. You try to keep dry. That is your response to the stimulus, which is it starts to rain. Another example would be like if you hear a loud bang. You're sitting at home, you hear a loud noise. The stimulus would be the loud noise. The response would be whatever you do. You may duck, you may run to another room, you may scream, whatever your response is. So that is it for today's notes. That was really short and sweet. But really, there's just several characteristics of life, but they're pretty straightforward. Growth, just increase in number of cells as something is getting bigger. Development is how you change as you grow, typically. And respond is how you interact with your surroundings. And we said, stimulus and response, the difference in that. Stimulus is what happens, what causes a change, and response is your reaction, how you react to that change, to that stimulus. Um, so tomorrow in the next set of notes, we will talk more about how plants respond and a couple more characteristics of life. So as always, if you ever have any questions or you need me to explain anything any further, just let me know and I'll be happy to do that. I hope to see you guys soon.